I recognise some of your faces, but those who you don't know me, my name is Sheridan, and I'm an artist from the north of from Ireland. My background was in communications and graphic design. I used to work for Wall Street investment banks in New York for many years, and banks in Ireland, in the whole corporate field, and then discovered that I was basically working in a poisoned world. I found that because of my job very early on, that basically the purpose of these big corporations is to rob people of everything and then sell it back to them. And that's because they'll rob you of your dignity, and they'll sell you dignity. They'll rob you of your self-esteem, and they will sell you cosmetics and clothes and fast cars and all fashion to try and give you back. And through a certain number of events, at the same time I was dealing with a particularly interesting phase where they were taking public companies like railways and electric utility companies, supply companies, gas companies, and they were selling them off, or giving them away, I should say, to big corporations. I discovered that they were doing this without the people of the countries knowing it. And it was all a big joke. And at the same time, I was reading books on serial killers. And I realized that there was no difference between a big corporation and a serial killer. It was the same thing. It was a psychopathic situation. No feelings, no decency. They need to take ownership of everything, have no compassion for human beings, have no compassion for human life. I want it all. They want it all. The same drive. So I started reading books on psychopaths, and well, there were very few at the time, on non-violent psychopaths. And this culminated in me writing a book in 2010 called Puzzling People, The Labyrinth of the Psychopath, which became quite well known and gave me a name to put me out there. But a part of my whole education in this field was to discover, if you've ever known a psychopath, they lie to you about everything. You wouldn't even know what their real name is. They'll tell you all kinds of lies. They'll tell you they were born in one place and they lived in another. They'll tell you they had no children and they had 10 children. By 5 different women. They lie and they lie and they lie and they deceive, and the purpose of that is to create confusion in your mind, so eventually you just give up and say, I don't know about him or her, I'll just CIA. But yeah, so that was basically my discovery. So the thing was, well, they lie to us about how business runs. It's like we all have to survive, but if we don't pay our bills, they come take our house off us, they come take our cars, they come take our lives, and they destroy us. If a big huge bank doesn't pay its bills, they get bailed out by the government. Oil companies get bailed out by the government. Big corporations have the greatest welfare scheme in the world. They can't fail. That's because they own the government. At the same time, they're telling us that capitalism is a great system. There's an equal share for everybody, an equal chance for everybody to become another Bill Gates. It's all there if you want it. But it's not there because it's rigged towards the big corporations, and it's rigged against the normal person, small businessman, small businesswoman. So it was all lies. And so then that opened up everything. Well, if they're lying about that, what else are they lying about? Well, they're lying about everything. They're lying about history. They're lying about what we are as people. They're lying about everything, the religion, the whole lot. And so I'd always been interested in religion, in history, but I hated it at school. I found it a horrible subject because there was no magic in it. It was always about, there was this war, there was that war, there was this guy, and he took this power, and so on and so on and so on. It was all about, what was it all about? Owning human beings. Some government or some king or somebody controlling human beings as livestock. That was the ultimate game. I'm going to invade that country because I want his people, I want their citizens, I want to own them like they're livestock, like they're sheep, like they're cattle. So then I say to myself, we live in a psychopathic system, a psychopathic world. Why has it come this way? What is the purpose of it? Absolute control. And then I said to myself, well, a psychopath is well known. They lie about their past in order to fool people. So have they lied about our history? Yeah, they've lied completely about our history. There's so many things they've never told us. They've never told us many things. They've never fully explained the ancient world, how the pyramids were built. They'll never tell us how the temple of Apollo was built. they'll say, oh, slaves, and they have these, they whip the slave. You know that's nonsense. When you go to places like Stonehenge, you know that's nonsense. What could they, these people are highly intelligent in the past. They had tremendous cooperation. If you had to build something like something like the monuments in the Giza Valley, or Stonehenge, what you would need is cooperation among people and skills, not some guy with a whip going, lift that stone, push that log. It doesn't work like that. Nothing would ever get done because people would rebel. And so, looking at history, my first part of my work, of this journey I've been on all my life, but really beginning in 2008, was one, I discovered the world is run by psychopaths. No doubt about it. Politics, government, big business, religion, mass media, you name it. They don't care about any of us. We're just units for them. We're human resources. That's what we are. Capital. One. That's not to say all big business people are bad. Some are very good, and some are actually working for us on the side. They're doing things. They do leak money out to people, but they can't do it publicly. But mostly, that's the system. The second part of it was how they change our perceptions to make us believe things and accept and want things and desire things, and how they use that to control us. So, for instance, a way they get to hold on to young people is to make them buy property. That's a big one. So a young guy doesn't need to buy a house or an apartment when he's young, but if he does, he's in the system, and the system wins. First of all, he has to work his ass off constantly to pay for his mortgage. Secondly, he's on the paperwork. Thirdly, he's paying all kinds of taxes, registration deeds, the works. So in order to get him to that point, you have to make him feel like he's a loser, unless he has property, unless he has assets, unless he has a nice car, unless he has the right girl. You have to make him feel that way. A woman is the same way. They'll play on individual things, perfect family, perfect everything. And they use the fashion industry for that. And the idea is to pull you deeper into the system by hopefully by the time you're 30 years old, you're so wired and screwed into that system that they own you in some way forever. And then I say to myself, well, was it always like that? And it wasn't. It's relatively only something that's quite recently began, about 2,000 years ago. Really took off about 300 years ago, 400 years ago. It's been tickling along. And the first mechanism they used to do that was religion, and the first thing was Christianity. Now, if you're a Christian, I'm not knocking your religion or anything like that, the work of Jesus. I'm talking about the power structures behind Christianity itself, the Vatican and so on. That's what I'm talking about. And how kings and presidents and all these corporations have used those things. So that was the first part. The first part was that I understood that the world was basically the psychopaths who were running the show, controlling us all, treating us like human resource livestock. The second part was how they change our perceptions to make us believe identities about ourselves. I'm a Catholic and Protestant, Jew, Muslim. I have to dislike that person. Once that person's my enemy. I'm from this country, I'm from that country. You're never, ever allowed to believe you're an individual. My favourite brand of Coke is Coca-Cola, of Coke is Pepsi. My favourite clothes are Gucci. My favourite car is a Volvo. You're then wired into branding. You're branded like a cattle. That's why they call it branding. You're branded like a cattle is branded with hot iron. And that's that you're wired constantly into the system, and you never stop and think to yourself, because they don't want you. Is this who I'm meant to be? Is this human life? Is this it? And it can be a very difficult thing to think about that, because a lot of us do well from the system. I've done well from the system. And it's not like I'm asking, you should ask anyone to throw that away. But at the same time too, why is it that me in Norway, or me in Ireland, you guys in Norway, someone in America, someone in France has a fairly good standard of living, and someone in Africa is starving in a desert with flies running around their head, or a woman in India has no rights at all? It doesn't seem right. Did we get lucky? Did we get lucky? Are we so lucky in the West that we have this high standard of living? Well, the reason why we have it is twofold. We were the most docile sheep. We were the sheep that behaved themselves. And we did everything we were told for 2,000 years, and we got slow rewards. Coupled with our ancestors in trade unions and things like that, fighting for better working conditions. But generally, we are compliant sheep. And we're treated well for being compliant. Where in other countries where they're not at that level yet, they're still, if you want to know how they would really treat us, just look how people in Africa and Asia are treated. women in particular, because that's how they treat us if if they could get away with it. Because we're always trying to take more taxes from us, take away more rights, take away our jobs. This is the psychopathic method. Now, what gives somebody the ability to think like that? Well, they see themselves as God on earth. That's really what it is. They're the God. I'm Bill Gates of Microsoft. I am a God. I'm the biggest man in software. And Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook. I am a God. And so on and so on. I'm a CEO. I'm a God. I'm the most powerful man. And because I'm the big shot Bill Gates, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to save seeds in Norway. I'm going to feed Africa. I'm going to be like a God. I'm going to be like a great prince. Okay? He's just a computer guy. That's all he is. But because he has all the money, he's now transformed almost into a God. Okay? Where did this come from? Why do we accept these people thinking and behaving like this? Christianity makes them like that. The idea is to become. Why is that? Well, the Abrahamic religious system is quite different. We think that the Abrahamic system of, say, Islam, Christianity, Judaism of the Middle East is the default religion model. It's quite rare. There's almost no religions in the world or spiritual traditions that has one God. That's quite unique to the Middle East. Very unique. It certainly is not unique. It did not exist in Europe. It did not exist in Asia. It did not exist in Africa. In the Native Americans, there's pantheons, mass amounts of gods. So when you have one God running the show, you have one book. When you have one book, you have one law. When you have one law, you have one country, one president, one CEO, one boss. Everything is the autocratic leader. The man, the big shot at the top who says, you must do this, you must do that. And that's because Christianity has made us believe that we have to have a strong man. God in heaven, God on earth. I mean, did Jesus say we had to have a pope? Of course not. He didn't say anything like that. But the Vatican is a power structure, and the Pope is God on earth. Just like the Queen of England is God on earth for the Anglican Church. That's what the power is. It's much more than just a leader. There's a symbolism of magic connected to it. So they actually have their own magic rituals and all this kind of thing. We don't. They've taken it from us. They said these things don't exist, and then we watch royal events where they have all these jewels and strange things, and the Pope and he opens a balcony door and he releases a dove, and that's all magic. It's all perception. It's all, and yet that's what they do. And we all think, oh, he's a great man because he wears this pointed hat. He looks like a fish head and all this. He's the king because he has the crown. He's the boss. She's the leader. And in the past, we were not like that. Prior to the arrival of Christianity in Europe or anywhere else, if you wanted to be the king of this room, I said to myself, right, I'm the boss of you lot. I had to prove it. You had to prove it. You had to fight. Or you had to treat people properly. Or you had to win respect by being a wise person, a kind person. And that was, why did we lose that? We lost it because of Christianity. Christianity does not belong in Europe. I know that sounds like a very bold and brazen statement, but it doesn't, because that's not our religion. We are not people. I'm not saying it's bad. It works for them in the Middle East. That's their world. That's their thing. But we were not like that. We were very different people. So what has this done to us? So why aren't we all happy Christians? Why do so many Westerners say, I'm going to Peru to discover spirituality? Why? Where did that come from? I'm European, I'm an American, I don't feel very spiritual. I think I'm going to go to India and go to an ashram and spend some time with a guru. He'll teach me about spirituality. I'm going to go to Tibet. Oh, the Dalai Lama. Oh, he's great. He's going to make me all spiritual. And we never stop to think to ourselves, why don't we have that? We did have that. It was taken from us. And that's why we have this belief that spirituality is something that happens in other countries. No one ever goes on a spiritual quest at home, in their own house. They go away. And that's because our real gods and our real goddesses and our real spiritual archetypes were simply taken from us or converted into Christian saints. So this is what this presentation is about tonight. It's about, I feel, is the final chapter in all this, a lot of people are waking up and switching on. They realise they're not watching TV anymore. They know it's all nonsense. They're just trying to live their life as best they can, as kind they can, compassionate they can. But they know the world is basically damaged. There's problems in this planet. At the same time, too, they realise they're also slaves to the money system. Although money itself is not bad, it's the way it's become credit and all these kind of things. And they also realise they're slaves to documentation, deeds, titles, ownership, all this stuff. Now, we can learn to uncouple of a lot of those things. You can start your own business. You can do something productive with your life. But you never ever think, is there a spiritual foundation for this? Absolutely there is, big time. And so the idea for this is to, the final, this is where I am for the rest of my life now. I want to say to people, right, we know the world is messed up. We know we can get out of it. And that's the final process of that, is discovering who we really are as European indigenous people. Now, the reason why I got involved in this is some nasty people getting involved in this stuff. Racist, white nationalist groups, and all this kind of thing. We're trying to take ownership of it, to pollute this by saying, oh, well, it's just proof that we Europeans are more powerful and all this over other peoples. I'm against all that. I hate that as much as I hate the idea of a person from Norway has to go to India to become spiritual. You're already spiritual. You've already got it inside you. They just haven't told you. And so I'm going to talk the rest of the evening about my experiences discovering my own Viking Nordic past and what it did for me personally and how it has allowed me to guide myself through my own life. And also it allows me to understand that history is filled with magic and human beings are all the same. Because I think in this, if we were to see ourselves as what our ancestors used to be, we would get on better with all other people around the world. I believe that this is the solution to all the problems with dealing with it. We wouldn't be in fear of Muslims, we wouldn't be in fear of other groups because our ancestors weren't. They traded with them. And if you ever go to the great cities in the world like New York or London and go to like the Lower East Side of Manhattan or Brick Lane in the East End of London, every single race on earth, all trading, in cash, of course, none of this banking credit nonsense, that you buy stuff and you sell stuff. And you might have a Jewish guy and a Muslim guy selling each other stuff, a Christian guy, an atheist guy, a Chinese guy, an African guy, and everyone is getting on great. They're all smiling and they're all happy. And no one is saying, I don't trust him because he's this. It's just purely everyone's having, this is trade brings people together. I tell anyone to go down these places and you'll see every religion and race on earth doing trade with cash, buying and selling, old-fashioned business. And that's, to me, is a spiritual form of business because it's based on trust of the human being. Because if I'm doing business with you and you're, say, a Muslim and I'm a Jew, I'm not seeing Muslim and Jew, I'm seeing the person below me who has a skill that I need and I can help you. That's a very different thing. So I'm seeing you as a person, as a spiritual being, as a real one, not a religion, but the lower one, the proper one. And I think that can be so helpful to us in our life, especially at this time when we're constantly made to live in fear of Muslims. You switch on the news, you think a gun is going to come out of your TV and shoot you with a guy holding a Quran behind it. It's literally, it's got that crazy. I don't know how it is here, how it is like a BBC. You live in total terror of this ISIS. It's always some group like this they have you in terror of. And it's like, fear. They're so different than us. They have different gods than us. No, you don't. It's the same God. Same God of the Christians, the same God of the Muslims. The same God. So what's the problem? The division was deliberately created, just like it's created between Muslims and Jews. In fact, it's been just shown now genetically that most of the Palestinians in Gaza are actually Jewish. They converted to Islam during the Ottoman Empire because there was better opportunities in government or to get into the army. So they became Muslims. They are the same people. And here they are killing each other in the Middle East, and they're the same people that probably even related. Why? Because of perception, and these psychopaths in charge said, he's your enemy, she's your enemy. Attack. Fear, be afraid. But these people seem to be quite different. And that's what this is about. Now, the reason why I call this presentation Difflin, that's the old Nordic name for Dublin, where I'm from. And that comes direct translation from the Irish Dovlin, which means the black pool. So the black pool in Irish, Dove is black, Lin is pool, Dovlin. Difflin was the Scandinavian, Norwegian. Nordic translation of that. And so the idea is the light from the black pool. I have personally learned and become such a much better person by discovering my indigenous European roots, both the Viking and my Gaelic heritage. And I think this is the last journey that we need to go on to actually really wake up and discover who we were meant to be, because the reason why they kept all this stuff from us, and in particular portrayed the Vikings in a horrible way. There's no group in Europe has the bad press of the Vikings. If there was, they're just it's terrible. The public relations, they're murderers, they're rapists, they're pirates, they're plunderers, they're alcoholics, they're just troublemakers. The reality is, it was nothing like that at all. It was the complete reverse. In fact, the Christians are more like that. If anything, the evidence shows that the Vikings were a better class of people, and I'm going to show you and prove it to you. Not just me. This is not just me, my personal statements. So,